welcome my felting friends to this week's video. This week we're going to do a balcony from some Mediterranean place I've never been to. It was inspired by all those lovely pictures you see from the Mediterranean balconies with lots of flowers hanging off them. So that was my inspiration, and when it's finished, I love this picture. I love it so much. I'm never parting with it. It's going on my wall. So that's how much I like it. So basically we're going to start with this is just a beigey creamy colour that I'm going to do all the outside of the walls with. So we've got a nice simple background to set off all the flowers and everything else that's going to go in it. There you can see I've actually covered the background. Now I'm going to mix a dark brown, as you can see that's my darkest brown, with some black, and I'm going to fill in the whole of the interior of the window. So all of this is going to get filled in, and I'm going to write across my drawing picture, as you know, because that's it doesn't matter, I have the original drawing, which is in the description box below if you want it. So go and help yourself to it, it's free. In the drawing I put the idea of I might put a cat in this window, but when it came round to it I didn't, because I actually preferred my other idea. So if you want to, you can leave the cat out of it. So to start with, I'm going to shade in, this is the inside window, top of the window, so I'm going to put some shadow in there. What makes this picture work, I think, is the contrast between light and dark, because I wanted to make it look like it was a very hot sunny day, and the only way to really do that was to have a real strong contrast between the lights and the darks. So I'm going to fill in all of this colour just on the top edge and down the side there. And it's just a mixture of different browns, really, dull browns, not your bright orangey browns or anything like that. This is the bit that's going to be the, I think it's called the plinth or lintel. No, it would be a lintel, wouldn't it? That's the outside of the window at the top. So I wanted this to have lots of orangey colour to it, lots of orangey yellow, so that it stands out from the beige. Now I need to say as well, while we're just watching this, if you decide to copy the way I've done this now, and you're going to put in your net curtain, put that in, trust me, you'll see why. Put that in before you do the interior window, because obviously I was still under the impression I was going to do a cat, so when I put that window in, and it made it quite awkward to get round to put the net curtain in, but you'll see that as we go along. So this little bit here, that's the same colour as on the top, and this is just where the sunlight is shining past the gap of the shutter, so it's just a little line down there. And I'm not using black here, I'm just using some dark brown just to define some of the little edges and things. Now these are my colours that I've chosen to do my shutters in. You obviously can choose what you like. But so if you look, I've got a dark, a medium and a light, and I will mix those together to get the varying shades. And the only other little bit I add in, which I'm not sure, you may see it later, is a little bit of tanzanite, which is basically a dark purple, because I wanted some of it just that little bit darker. But the actual whole shutters are made from those three colours you saw. So here I'm putting in that window, which, as I say, if you know you want the net curtain, pop it in before you do this bit. It's very simple to do, but you'll see that when you get to the end. The other hint I'll give you on this, I had to go back and adjust slightly, was make sure your uprights are upright. make sure all your uprights are the same. So that would be the sides of the windows, the window that I'm putting in now, and the shutters. The upright parts of those should all be the same. Here I'm putting in this window, and I've put in the darkest of those 3 blues I had first, and then I'm just going over with the lightest of the 3 blues, just where the sun would be catching just the edges. Just very thin little bits. So this starts off, I put down medium blue. I was going to use that first, and then I decided to actually go in over it with some of the darker blue as well, because I wanted to have the option of using all 3 of those blues. You'll see what I mean. And if I'd gone in with the medium blue all the way, I would have lost my option to use the darker colours on the frame and things. So if you look in a minute, sometimes I don't make sense, I know, sorry. If you look in a minute, you'll see that this frame part I've actually darkened down a bit. But all I did was I went over it with a bit of the darker blue. So you could actually mix the light blue and the dark blue together and have a mottled effect that way and put that down. Or lighter and darker. You could do these in red, any colour, orange, whatever colour you like, really. And the reason I chose blue, well, see how I've darkened it down a bit. The reason I chose blue is because I'm going to have warm coloured flowers, reds and things like that, and I wanted them to stand out against the blue shutters. And because the walls are cream, again, the blue works really well because it's an opposite. So now I'm just building up. This is going to have those like Louvre shutter things that open and shut kind of thing. So I'm making sure my wool goes across rather than runs down the picture. And then I'm just using that same dark colour that I've used for the frame, and I'm just filling it in. And I'm keeping this quite dark because this part is going to be the shady part of the shutter. And then I'm taking my medium blue. Now you can see why I changed my mind about using that medium blue on the inner bit, because this is going to be the outer edge of the shutter. So I want the medium blue, and then I'm going to go over that with some of the light blue as well, because the light would be catching on this outer edge of the shutter as well. But I wouldn't have got this effect if I'd used that medium blue on the shutter itself in the first place. And now I'm using, can you see up in the left hand corner, that's the colour tanzanite I've used, and I've mixed that with the dark blue because it's a nice dark purple, and I just wanted elements of this to be even darker than the blue I had. So I just mix that, as I say, with some of the dark blue. And then I'm just going to mark off the edges and where the slats are. This is another one of those of be aware of the angle, because the shutter is outwards they would not go straight across. If you did them as a straight across thing, you'll lose the illusion of the shutter being at an angle. So just think about the angle that you're going to put your shutters at, the slats in them, I mean. So as you can see, I've marked off where each slat is, and then I'm going over with some lighter blue, and this is my light blue out of the three things, and I'm just adding a little touches of it underneath the darker purple lines, because the purple lines, the dark ones I've done, are the shadows of the shutters, if you're following me. So each one comes away a little bit. They're all set in at a slight angle, so that's the shadow that each slat is cast. So I want the white, or not the white, the light blue to go across the top next to it. Right, so we're going on to the other shutter. Now this side of the shutter here is catching all the sunlight. So we're going to start off straight away with our medium blue. And because you're using the same colour on both shutters, they will make a pair. It won't look odd that you've got one darker and one lighter. So this is now your medium. So we're going to be working with the medium blue, the light blue, and a touch of the dark blue, but the dark blue is going to be in the shadow parts, or the lines of the shutters and things. So this obviously is where the darkest colours come in, because there would still be shadows on this shutter. And now we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to fill in this side with your medium blue wool. I was looking at this picture when I'd finished it, and I was saying to my daughter that it's astonishing what you can actually do. I don't mean that I'm clever or anything, I don't mean any of that, but I just mean it's astonishing what you can do with wool. Because to me, when I stood back from this finished picture, it looked like it had been painted. To me, this is as much art as anything else, but it's so undervalued. And I don't mean it even from a monetary point, I mean just from a appreciation of the effort and work that goes into them. So we're basically doing the same thing on this one. We're popping in the shutter markers and things, and we're putting in some darker bits for the shadows. As again, if you think, like I say, those slats bend away slightly. So I can use the same shadow colour because it's the same amount of shadow. So I'm still using that dark colour I used on the other side. And then I'm doing the same thing but with the very light blue now. I'm going under the dark shadow lines with the light blue. I didn't use the light blue to make the whole shutter because then I wouldn't have had a colour to do the highlights with, and I didn't want to really introduce white if I don't have to. I wanted to keep it all in that blue look. So now I'm just sort of marking in the terracotta flower pot. It's a trough really, so I just assume it's terracotta. I'm sure it could be made of all sorts of things. I fib. No, I'm not. I'm marking in just the bottom window plinth here. And now I'm taking, if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know I've got a colour called pewter that honestly I use for everything. Anybody will tell you. And this is pewter. So I've mixed it with just a tiny bit of browns and things, but this is basically my pewter again. So I'm marking in the shadow that the shutter would cast, and I'm also thinking about, because I know what I'm going to do with my picture, where else the shadows would fall for other things. I'm going to have ivy and things at the top, and that would cast bits of shadow. So you need to keep this shadow quite dark like it is now. It looks really weird, I guess, at the moment, but it will all come together later on. So that's why some of my shadow is sticking out in little bits, because that's going to be the shadow cast by some of the ivy and things growing on the wall. And we will go in later, well, I've done a little bit there, but I go back later on as well and darken in the edge down by the blue shutter. So I know here as well that I'm going to have a window box with flowers and dangly bits, dangly green plants and things, so they would also cast a shadow under the window box onto the wall. So I'm building up the shadow under the window box and some odd bits down on the wall, which will all come together as well later on. At the moment it just looks like I spilt a cup of coffee on it. Right, so now I've taken the darkest green I've got, and I'm just putting in some green up here. This is just the background shadow colour behind the leaves I'm going to put on later, so it doesn't matter what the green is, it just needs to be dark. So if you just have an ordinary green, mix it with plenty of black and brown and put that on there, because you're not really going to see it much. It's just going to be between bits of leaves and things that it will show. But like I said at the beginning of the picture, what makes this work is the contrast in lights and darks. And now what I'm doing is I've got different greens, and I'm just going to pull them apart and make little blobs that look like leaves. So this takes a little while because I must have put, I don't know, 50, 100 leaves on this. I want it to look good, so I take my time and I'm literally putting all the leaves on, and I'll mix it between medium dark greens and light greens, as you see. So by the time it's finished, it's a built up area, not raised off the thing, but it's built up with lights and darks, and I mix them up, so I'm not going to have all the lights on the last layer and all the darks on the first layer. I mix them up because if you looked at an ivy dangling, you're going to have shadows and lights and leaves below the main leaves that are catching a bit of light and things. So mix up your colours and mix up how you put them. and then just pop down the leaves wherever you want them. I'm hoping you can see it. I couldn't zoom in any closer, it kept going fuzzy, so I'm hoping you can see what I mean. But I've built up as much as I can, and I'm just rolling little blobs and putting them down. And then obviously on the top layer we will have a few more that actually are quite bright and catch the light. So now we're actually onto the window box itself. This doesn't have to be anything fancy because a lot of it's going to be covered up. So if you consider what I'm doing is just marking it in, but I'm marking it in a colour because some of it will be seen. And then I'm just putting blobs on it randomly. They're just going to be considered shadow blobs, because it will again be hidden a lot behind greenery. But if it shows through, I want it to look like some bits are casting shadow and things. Now the thing with this I had to go back and alter later was the bottom angle of the window box. For some reason it kind of got skewed out of shape slightly, and it made the illusion look like it was running from the front, from the edge I'm working on now, which is again just that very dark green. We're doing the same thing. It made it look like it was running backwards instead of along the window. So I had to go in and just alter the underneath of that, but it was only a little bit. So here we're doing the same thing. It takes a little bit of patience, but I've put in my dark green, and now I'm just going to build up layers of leaves. Again, all different coloured greens, as long as they kind of roughly match each other. You don't want some weird greens, but plant coloured greens. You can see some of my selection there. And I just keep taking it, no rhyme or reason to it at the moment. I'm just taking them and plonking them down. The only time I make sure it's darker is when I'm doing the side of the box where I am now, as it would run down the side, because that would be in shadow. But there's nothing I'm doing here that's a specific thing. I'm just putting lights and darks. And now you can see why the shadow under the window box now is starting to come into its own, because bits are dangling. So this does take, like I say, a little while because there's a lot of leaves to put in here. I decided by this point I wasn't going to do the cat because I would have done it before I did the window box. And at this point I thought I'll just leave the window empty like this. So it's the same principle. I've done all the other leaves, and then I'm making sure that I've got a few highlight leaves where the sun's really catching the window box. So I've just picked out a selection of colours, as you can see around my picture, and these are the ones I chose to do my window box in. I wanted them all to be warm colours because of the blue shutters. So the only ones I wouldn't consider to be warm colours in that selection would be the purples, but that they were there because I wasn't sure if I wanted just dashes of that in to match in with the windows kind of thing, just to cool it off in little places. So the other thing I did when I finished this picture, which it doesn't show on here because again I pinned it up on the wall and had a look at it, was if you look at the shutter that's above my hand now, where I've lifted it off my mat and then put it back again, it's pulled the uprights into bits of a curve, and I just needed to go back and just straighten those out, which is what I did. So they now look like they're actually upright rather than bowing a bit. That's one of the things you do have to keep your eye on when you pull your picture off the mat, is if you've got especially fine lines, you can distort them a bit. So it's always worth going back and looking over your picture and just double checking those. So can you see how just those little dots of purple, to me, they work well with the window shutters and things. And this is just some slightly off-white I've got. So like I say, at this point I had thought, well, I'm just going to leave the window blank, it doesn't need anything in it. But then I pinned it up on my wall, as I do, and I looked at it for a while and I just thought, no, it's a big vacant space, it just doesn't look right. So that's why I then decided to go and put this net curtain in. Now because I've got this roving or tops, I can pull it into long thin lines like this, and it works really well because if you look, I could actually put it in the direction that I wanted, which was very handy. But as you can imagine, I then have to work around all the window panes and things with it because I didn't know I was going to do this. So it became, it wasn't too hard, but it was I do kind of wish I'd done it first. So heed my warning if you want to make this picture, and I strongly recommend you do. It's really nice to do. Do the net curtain first. And again, at this time, I was just going to leave it with the net curtain because I don't want the stuff in the window to detract from the scene, if you know what I mean. If I'd put too much in the room, you'd have lost the appeal of the window itself. And because I just did a simple net curtain, I don't think it took anything away from the actual picture. I actually think it added to it. Just making a tie back for the curtain here. So then I thought I'd done, but I decided that although if I was looking up at this window, because it's such a bright day, I really wouldn't see much of anything inside the room, but I thought it needed a hint, you know, you almost can't see a hint of something. And so what I do in a moment, I'll show you, is I go and I put in a very simple door frame, but you'll see that in a second. Because I just thought it wasn't realistic, and I do try my best to have pictures look real, or as much as I can get them. So you can see I've put some darker leaves on this side because this is in the shadow. So here I'm putting in a hint of a door frame. So I'm just going to mark in just the top and one side, because if you were looking up you might just see in the room just a touch. But even though I'm doing this in a dull brown, so it's not an interesting colour, I'm actually going to, once I put it in, I'm actually going to cover it over quite a lot. And the outer part of that area, not the door itself, the outer part, I actually go in with complete black, which you know I very rarely use black like that. But I put black in all of that, and then the darkest brown I've got I use for the door. And then I kind of pull it over the frame itself, the door frame. So I put the black in, and I'm putting a really dark brown because I still want that to be dark in there. And then I pull that wool, just with my needle, I just pull it a little bit over the lighter door frame, so it kind of almost disappears. But if you bother to look hard enough, you can just see hints of a door. Just a little something in the room, but not enough to detract from the main bit. And there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, let me know. Please give me a like, subscribe, all those good things. I have a Patreon page now as well, if you're interested in joining that and seeing all the good things that go on there. You might like what's on screen now. If you do, I'll see you there. If not, I'll see you for the next video. Bye for now.